I'll be watching.
So make sure you're on that one too, okay?
Hello, everybody too.
Okay. So we are here, day 7. Yay! Day 7. We're going to clap for everybody who's doing the 30-day Boss Up Challenge. We are on day 7. It's been a full week, and I'm here today to do part 4 of how to do a business plan. And before we get started, I'd like to welcome all of the new people, thank all of the returning people, and I also like to do acknowledgments for business owners. And so one business that, and it's funny because I don't even know the name of it, but I know over in Fort Foote Village in Fort Washington, Maryland, there is a black-owned beauty supply store. And that's pretty rare, so I would definitely encourage anyone that lives local to um, give them a shot, basically, over in Fort Washington, Maryland. Okay.
So,
All right, so I'm going to introduce Angelica, and she's going to talk. She's going to open up the show today with a brief talk about. Go ahead.
so I'm gonna be talking about my bakery shop I'm gonna have when I grow up in the future.
Okay.
So, first thing you guys will know, so I will not be a worker. I will work there, but I will be the owner of the bakery shop. And I will sell food, I will sell snacks, and I will sell drinks. And then I will make a lot of money for this time.
Okay. So how are you going to go about opening up a bakery shop? I know you were talking about a lemonade stand last time.
I'm gonna go about, like, I'm gonna make a commercial so everybody can know about it.
Okay. All right. So you're going to do some marketing. All right. What else are you going to do? How are you going to run your shop?
I'm gonna probably let people do for work there for 5 days, see how they act. If they act correctly, I'm gonna let them stay. But if they don't, then I'm not gonna let them stay until they have a better attitude.
Okay. So you're going to have some employees. All right. How you think you would feel about firing and terminating an employee?
I would feel pretty bad because I wouldn't want to do it, but I would have to, and then I would feel bad because they also didn't treat the other people or me right. So I would feel bad if I had to fire people.
You would feel bad?
Yes.
Okay. But you would do it if you had to?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're going to open up a bakery shop. You're going to have a commercial so that people know about you, and you're going to get yourself some employees.
Yep.
So I think you need to work on a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to work on a business plan, and I'll bring you back so you can show everybody your business plan?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your future plans with us.
You're welcome.
You clap it. Take a bow. Okay. All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. So let's get on with Business Builder Basics. I'm going to give you all 20 minutes of.
And I also want to say something else. Don't forget to subscribe to.
Oh, yes. Don't forget to subscribe to Business Builder Basics, the channel on YouTube. There's a group on Facebook, and there's also a business page. We appreciate your support. So today will be part 4 of how to do a business plan. This business plan series has become massive. We're on part 4, and today we're going to work on the financial piece. Okay, the business plan, as I said on the first video, is very important if you're intending to do business with investors. You're searching for partners. You want to show people what you are proposing to do. So the business plan is a very organized and professional way of presenting your business to investors, partners, just presenting it. Now, if you're not going to do that, if you don't have intentions to do that at this stage, then you don't really need to do a formal business plan. However, I would encourage you to put together something for yourself, even if it's not formal, just so you know what your plan is and what your strategy is. So, just a brief recap. So far, we've gone over the executive summary, the general company description, products and services, the marketing plan, the operational plan, the management and organization, and that's where we left off last time. Okay, so today we're going to start with the section, your personal financial statement. Personal financial statement. This is important, and the reason why is when you're going into business, people want to know how you handle your personal financial affairs. So when you do a personal financial statement, you want to provide one for each owner of the company or major stockholder. You want to show your assets and liabilities held outside of the business, basically your personal net worth. This is how you're going to calculate your net worth. And the reason why the personal financial statement is important is, and you may decide to leave this out depending on who you're giving this to. If it's going to be a bank or investors, then absolutely you will want them to have this information. But if it's just a potential partner, depending on the dynamics of the relationship, then you may not need to do all of that. But if you're going to do it, you want to make sure that it's accurate and that people see how you handle your personal financial affairs. One of the biggest problems or blocks, barriers that prevent people from getting into business is not having startup money. And one of the major things that causes people to go out of business is not managing money properly. And so the personal financial statement kind of helps show people how you've managed your financial affairs and what your current status is. If you don't know how to manage money, then being in business is going to be a challenge unless you outsource all of the money factors, or you make sure that there's a structure in place, some type of voting structure or something that where you figure out how you spend money, how you manage money. If you in your personal life are someone that overspends, or you don't know how to save, you are not very organized, you don't pay your bills on time, then those things don't translate well into the business world, because that same way of dealing with your personal finances likely is going to spill over into how you manage your business finances. Nobody wants to go into business with someone they perceive as irresponsible financially. It will cause a number of issues. Your credibility will be at stake. People will not necessarily trust what you're going to do with the money. And oftentimes, if people think that you're in a bad financial situation, a lot of times people don't, they frown upon it. Even if the situation was something that was really just, largely out of your control, you hit hard times, maybe you ruined your credit or something like that. But when you're going into business, it's important to try to clean up your situation as much as possible. You want to have good money management skills. A lot of times people are overspending and spending frivolously on things, and if they would just tweak a few areas, they would do a lot better with saving and having a cushion to work with. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and they really don't have to. It's just because the more money people make, the more money people spend. And so I know I would like to do a video one day where we're just talking about how to cut back in areas and how to save, how to get your household budget in better order, and to make sure that when you start practicing the budgeting in your personal life, you'll be prepared for it in your business life. This was something that I had to learn. Actually, I did very well with my personal finances, and I had very good credit. When I went into business, because it became such a struggle at times, a lot of times I did have to rob Peter to pay Paul, let things go unpaid. And so my credit really took a hit. And sometimes it's not that I was just really trying to be irresponsible. There was just a lot of the times insufficient funds to be able to do all that needed to be done, because I didn't start out with a huge lump sum of money as a cushion. So when you're pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, it can be very challenging. But before that, prior to that, I was very responsible with my personal finances, and that helped me because by having good credit, I was able to get credit cards, buy homes without providing a lot of documentation. It really helped. If I did not have that, I would not have been able to do what I did basically. So you want to get your personal financial statement together and be ready to present that as part of your business plan. The next thing you want to do is do do a calculation of your startup expenses and what you anticipate your startup expenses are going to be. This is very important. If you don't have any idea of what it's going to take to get started financially, you won't know what to ask for if you're looking for investors. You won't know what to ask the bank for. Um, you will show people who may be even more skilled than you might show them that you don't really know what you're doing, or that you're not foreseeing certain things. So it's very important that you anticipate your startup expenses before you begin operating your business to the best of your ability. And so you want to try to really, estimate as accurately as possible, and even possibly overshoot a little bit. You want to overestimate what the expenses may be so that you don't not have enough, or don't ask for enough money because you underestimate it. It's always better to overestimate and then fall short of that than to underestimate and then exceed it. Now you have a problem. But you don't want to overestimate too much where it creates a false impression that your business is not sustainable, or too much overhead to be worth the while. You don't want potential partners or people to think that it's a huge, there are so many expenses associated with the business that you're doing. So add a little padding in there, but don't overdo it. One thing that you can do actually is you can create what's called, I believe it's a contingency. Let me make sure I have the language correct because I took some notes here. Yeah, contingencies. So in your budget, you can add a line item called contingencies, and this is to account for unforeseeable expenses, because no matter how accurately you try to calculate expenses, once you get into business, you will find that there's always something more that is needed that you didn't think about. So your contingency line item should be approximately 20% of all the other expenses that you calculated to start up. And so you want to take 20% of that and act like that's an expense that could be possible. And the good thing is, if you end up not needing it, then hopefully you've made a budget where now that money is just actually profit or can be used for something else. So you want to definitely, this will be one of the most important things that you show a partner or someone that you're asking for money, because they want to know exactly why you're asking for money, why you're asking for how much you're asking for. You want to be able to really not have them guess about it at all. You should have line items. If you know how to use Excel, I recommend getting familiar with Excel spreadsheets and making sure you create a budget that have broken down line items. So you might have your lease, your utilities broken down: gas, electric, water, supplies, groceries, you know, anything that your business is going to require. You want a separate line item. Try not to group things together too much into broad categories, because you really want the person who's looking at your business plan to understand precisely what the money is correlated to, what that line item actually is, so they don't have to guess. So you want to definitely use that Excel spreadsheet, add that into your budget, and be prepared to talk about how you came up with those figures. You really should look at the business plan like a research project. You should look at it like a research project because you're going into this with the idea that you want to become the expert on what it's going to take to do the business you want to do. You want to become the expert. This business plan is almost like a mini dissertation on your business, basically. Your business is the topic. And you're going to put a lot of time into looking up this information, familiarizing yourself with everything that you need to know so that you look like you know your stuff. You actually do know your stuff. Because any potential partner or investor, if they are business savvy, they're going to have questions. They're going to have questions for you. If you want to know what I'm talking about, feel free to watch the show Shark Tank. If that's not something that you watch, I definitely recommend it for anybody that's interested in doing business. Shark Tank is I mean, of course, it's, commercialized and it's a little bit of drama added in there, but for the most part, what they're showing you is the way people negotiate. Um, it shows like if you want to go to someone who's in a better position than you and convince them to work with you, it kind of tells you what they're going to be asking. So when you've done your business plan, you get to the part where you can ask for the amount of money that you want to be able to qualify that without hesitation. All right, so your actual financial plan, that's another separate category. Your financial plan, basically that consists of a 12-month profit and loss projection. So remember, you're not in business yet, but your financial plan is going to basically project what you feel like your profit and loss statements will be for a year-long period. You could even, depending on how much money you're asking for and the real depth of this business plan you're doing, you may even want to do a 4-year profit and loss projection. You want to do a cash flow projection, projected balance sheet, and a break-even calculation. These are all terms that are more for the accountant people, and you may actually need to consult an accountant or someone that is skilled with accounting principles so that they can help you understand what each of these things are. So if you're taking notes, which I always recommend you all have your composition book or your notebook, you should definitely jot down these things. Profit and loss projection, cash flow projection, projected balance sheet, and a break-even calculation. Google those things. Google those things and get as comfortable as you can with those terms, understanding that you don't have to turn yourself into a professional accountant. You just need to have a general idea of what these things are so that you can start working on them. Okay, so more importantly, the process of thinking through the financial plan will improve your insight into the inner financial workings of your company. When you do this, as painstaking as it might be, you're going to be so glad that you did, especially if you do it right, because it can really let you know what you're shooting for and what to expect. So I have more detailed information about what those terms are, and I want to just take a few moments to do that. I know we'll be coming up on our 20-minute mark in about 4 minutes. So let me just tell you a little bit about this 12-month profit and loss projection. It's kind of considered like your centerpiece of your plan. This is where you put in all the numbers and get an idea of what it will take to make a profit and be successful. That speaks for itself. This is so important because you want to know, can this business do what I want it to do? What can this business do? Because if you're getting into that business primarily to make money, then this is the part you want to spend quite a bit of time on, because you may get down to it and you do it so thoroughly that you realize, oh man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, this is not the kind of profit I thought would be generated. There's, high overhead. Even if it's high income, if there's high overhead, at the end of the day, your net profit, your bottom line is what you're concerned with. Gross revenues sounds good. You can make $1 million, a couple of $1 million for the year, but if your expenses are right up there, then what's left over is your net. And that won't be very impressive if you have extremely high expenses and not enough income. So this part, the 12-month profit and loss projection, is really important. You want to know if you can be sustainable, if you can reach or achieve the level of income that you'd like to see to stay in the game. Okay, let's see. The 4-year profit projection is very similar. It's just you're doing it over the course of 4 years. The reason why a 4-year one is optional, but it can be a good idea depending on how long you plan to be in business. If you plan on being in business long term, the reason why the 4-year projection is good is because you can factor in things like inflation. Expenses go up, minimum wage goes up, leases go up, everything goes up, gas, everything goes up. So if you factor those things in, can you anticipate increases in your income that are proportionate to the increases in the expenses, or is it disproportionate? Because then it's going to tell you that even if in year one you might have a net profit, but if over the course of the years your income isn't really going up but your expenses are, now by the time you're at year 4, your net income, the net profit doesn't look very good. So this 4-year projection is gonna take more time. You have to put more time into the business plan, but I think it's worth it, because if you want to make sure that 4 years later you're not going to be disgusted with what you see, this is a good thing to do on the front end. All right. Projected cash flow. This is important because the profit projection is like the heart of your business, right? The 1 year and the 4 year, that's the heart of your business. But the cash flow is the blood, okay? It's the blood. Businesses fail because they cannot pay their bills. I said that at the beginning of the video. Hello. Businesses fail when they can't pay their bills. All right, so although every part of your business plan is important, none of it means a thing if you run out of cash. So the point of this is to plan how much you need before you start up for preliminary expenses, operating expenses, and reserves. You should keep updating this cash flow statement and keep using it. So as you're going along, keep using it. Because even after you get into business, you want to stay in business. And so this is a very diligent and responsible way of managing the company finances. This is not something that I would not consider this my strong suit. I use QuickBooks, and I pay someone to do the bookkeeping in-house, and we can pull all these they have these kind of reports that you can pull. As long as you're keeping your data entry up to date, you can pull all these reports and it'll show you things like after you've actually been in business. But the other thing you can do if you were to get QuickBooks is you can actually do like a mock business. You can create a file and do a mock business and kind of see what things would look like if you plugged in the numbers for what you think you would get. So let's see here. I want to see what else I should cover with you all. So I guess the cash flow projection is really just looking forward into what your checking account will be. Like, how much money are you going to have 3 months from now, 6 months from now? That's what it boils down to, your cash flow. So I don't want to overwhelm you all. Some people, they get tense when you start talking about numbers or financial terms. And so the point of this talking about finances in this evening is just as it relates to the business plan. So I don't really want to get you to, I don't want to give you too much information. Not too much and not too soon. And so I think the most important things I've gone over here. I will say something about the break-even analysis. The break-even analysis, that predicts your sales volume at a given price required to cover total cost. So, in other words, how much do you have to charge to make ends meet? How much do you have to charge? How much do you have to bring in? How many clients would you need paying this particular rate? How do you work it where you have something that's reasonable? The way that I did this, when I did mine, I looked at what other people, what my competitors were charging for the similar services. And what I tried to do, I tried to see if I could undercut them by a significant amount, which would help drive customers my way, but yet see if I could still um, cover all the costs. And so when you breaking even in your first 5 years of business is a good thing, believe it or not, because a lot of times you may not see an actual net profit in your business depending on the nature of the business. You may not see that for a few years, and it can be very discouraging, but just know up front, you may not see a profit for years with your business. Okay, so if you're breaking even, that's something to actually celebrate. I know that sounds weird, but even more so if you have positioned yourself to get a double benefit from your business because you own the properties that they operate out of. So now when you break even, you may not have that net profit to get excited about, but at least your mortgages are being paid and your net worth is going up. Like every month those mortgages get paid, your net worth goes up. And so net worth is valuable. It's not liquid, but it can become liquid. When you make something liquid, it's the process of transitioning that asset into actual dollars, like cash or money in the bank. So how do you go from owning $1 million home that's worth $1 million to actually having that $1 million? That's to make something liquid. So if you break even, it can be something to celebrate if you set things up a good way for yourself. And I do recommend in a lot of cases, if it works for you, to try to own the properties that you're doing business out of, because that makes it easier to stomach some of the tough times because you know you have a double investment. And I think that's all I want to say really about the financial statement. The goal for tonight would be to, it's right in line with what we've been doing the last few days. The goal for tonight will be for you all to start working on the numbers for your business. Think about all the expenses associated with operating your business. Startup costs, and then ongoing operational expenses. Those are two different things. What it takes to start up usually is more than what it takes to like keep going. Not always the case though, because when you're starting up, you may not actually have the amount of staff that you need right away. You may need only a small amount of staff, and then eventually you get bigger. Perfect example is in childcare and the assisted living homes. I was always my first employee. I was always the one that started the work until I generated enough revenue to hire my first employee, and then another, and then another, and then another. And so it's very good basically to do it that way so that you can make sure that the money is there. You want to make sure the money is there. So I think that's all I really want to say this evening. We've had some people stop through. We don't have a lot of viewers, and so I will hang out for a couple of minutes and see if anyone is interested in a Q&A. Otherwise, I want you to set the goal of thinking about your expenses. You may have more or less as startup costs. Typical rule of thumb, your startup costs are going to be more than what your routine operational costs are. But that's general rule of thumb, but that's not always the case, like the example I gave. Once I started hiring employees, I had to make sure the money was there, and it was a much bigger expense having 5 employees than having just me, who I didn't have to pay at all, basically, because I would forego a salary. I would say the bulk of the time I was in business, I did forego salary, basically. So I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes to see if anyone tunes in. Of course, you know you can always catch this. It'll be on my timeline. It will be on the YouTube channel. I will post this in the Business Builder Basics group. I will tweet it. I haven't figured out Instagram yet. I'm not sure the Instagram is for this type of thing. It appears the Instagram is mostly for images and pictures. And I don't think Snapchat is really appropriate for this. I have to check it out, but I don't, from how my son explained what Snapchat is, I don't think it's appropriate for this. But you have opportunities to watch this video at your leisure. Just get caught up. Make sure if you're doing the 30-day Boss Up Challenge, don't fizzle out. Don't fizzle out. Hang in there. If you can do anything, I think they say, what, 21 days is when something, you can make something a habit or get adjusted to something. We're only on day 7, but hang in there. Hang in there and continue with that stamina we talked about. You need that mental and physical stamina to hang in here. And if you can come, give me 20 minutes of your time every day for 30 days, that implies a level of discipline, tolerance, patience, commitment, all which are required to do well in business. Okay? Hey, Toya. So let's see. I'm going to say my highs to everybody to stop through. Toya, Alicia, Ming Lee, Jay, Stan, Jonathan, William, Michael, Jay, Sammy, Gregory, Michael Thompson, Marlon Lancaster. We have quite a few. And Majesty. Okay. So part four of the business plan and day 7 of the 30-day Boss Up Challenge. For those of you that are staying the course, pat yourself on the back quickly and then get back to work. The pats on the back should be quick. Make sure you do it, but don't spend too much time there because there's so much more to do. Okay? Set your goal to get these financial projections in order. And if you need any help with it, be sure to tune in so that you can take advantage of the Q&A time, which is when I'm here at your disposal to answer any questions that you may have, even if they're very specific questions that only you are, only relevant to what you're doing. I don't mind that at all. Hello, Ornell. Okay, so I don't see any questions. I gave it a few minutes. Feels like it was a few minutes. Okay. Well, thank you for those that tuned in and those who will eventually tune in. I anticipate, since these videos are going to stay active on YouTube and on the timeline, I mean, there may be people that you don't see these videos until 2 or 3 years from now. I know there are people who I found on Facebook, and once I realized I liked what they were talking about, I would go back and like try to watch as many of their videos, and they may have been on Facebook for 4 years. And I'm still like working my way back or starting from the beginning and looking at their videos. So I'm very excited that this information, I'm putting it out here for people to get it at their leisure. And that's it. So I encourage everyone to boss up. Boss up. Don't be afraid. Give it a shot if you can. It can be something small, but just, give it a shot. A side hustle, something. It's good to have. It's really a good thing to do. If you are unable to do it, then I encourage you, if you have children who are old enough to understand even a little bit, have them tune in. My daughter, she just turned 7, and I always talk to her about business. Then it just becomes second nature. So if you kind of feel like you're too busy, you don't have the energy, or not even really even the desire, that's fine. But maybe perhaps encourage your children, because usually the children are very vibrant, energetic, and they're very creative. And sometimes we underutilize our children, and we underestimate our children, but they're capable of like great things. So please let your children tune in. I promise the content will never be inappropriate for a child. There will never be anything indecent that we talk about here. So let them tune in. Have them watch the video. Maybe I can do like a short, maybe 7-day boss up, challenge for the kids, where I make sure that my language and the way that I talk is really like down to the level that they can understand it, like lemonade stand level. Or even one of my friends, her daughter was making slime and selling it at school. When I was in middle school, I was selling blow pops. So, you want to encourage those things early, definitely. All right, so let's all boss up, okay? Thanks for tuning in.